When it came to love, laughter, and longing, Nora Ephron knew the blueprint. The queen of romantic storytelling, Ephron once revealed the classic love stories that shaped her own cinematic heart. These weren't just movies, they were emotional roadmaps of desire, heartbreak, and connection. Today, we're diving into 22 of the greatest classic romances that Nora Ephron cherished, and that still stir something deep in all of us. 1. The Philadelphia Story. Nora Ephron adored dialogue that snapped like champagne bubbles, and The Philadelphia Story had it in spades. Katharine Hepburn, Cary Grant, and James Stewart tangled in a romantic triangle that Ephron called the perfect comedy of remarriage. It was about second chances, about loving someone for who they are, not who you want them to be. Hepburn's Tracy Lord was headstrong, but not invincible, and Grant's wry charm played perfectly off her cool exterior. This wasn't about sweeping gestures, it was about realizing that love grows not in fireworks, but in the quiet clarity of understanding. Ephron found its message timeless. People fumble, people change, and sometimes the best love stories start after a broken heart. For her, this wasn't just romance, it was maturity with a punchline. Druha Casablanca. Of course, Casablanca was on Ephron's list. To her, it wasn't just a romance, it was the romance. Tragic, grand, and unforgettable. Rick and Ilsa's love wasn't fulfilled, but that made it even more powerful. The black and white elegance, the wartime stakes, the line, "We'll always have Paris." It's all burned into the memory of cinema. What Ephron loved most was its emotional weight, the idea that true love sometimes means letting go. That sacrifice is love. She once said the best romances are the ones that break your heart a little, and Casablanca delivered that in spades. The pain in Humphrey Bogart's goodbye, the ache in Ingrid Bergman's eyes, it made love look like a noble war, and heartbreak feel like destiny. Ephron admired that courage. Dritter Brief Encounter. Nora Ephron often pointed to Brief Encounter as a masterclass in restraint. Two strangers meet in a train station. Their love blooms in stolen moments and quiet anguish. It's a story of what might have been tender, forbidden, and deeply English in its emotional undercurrent. Celia Johnson and Trevor Howard never consummate their affair, but the ache between them lingers in every glance. Ephron admired how the film captured the weight of everyday passion, how real love often lives in silences, not declarations. She said the heartbreak in Brief Encounter was more powerful than any kiss. It wasn't about happy endings. It was about real-life choices, moral dilemmas, and the haunting permanence of what-ifs. For Ephron, this film was a reminder that the most devastating romances are the ones we can never fully have. Fourth, an affair to remember. There's a reason Ephron used this film as the heartbeat of Sleepless in Seattle. An Affair to Remember was her cinematic religion. Cary Grant and Deborah Kerr fall in love on an ocean liner. But fate, injury, and missed rendezvous delay their reunion. It's sentimental, lush, and swoon-worthy, but what Ephron loved was its complete emotional commitment. The scene at the Empire State Building? That was the emotional summit of romance. She believed the movie worked because it leaned into its longing. It wasn't afraid to be earnest. No irony, just love at its most vulnerable. She knew audiences cried, not because it was sad, but because it made them believe in impossible, inconvenient, enduring love. It was the dream, wrapped in technicolor tears. Fifth Roman Holiday. Audrey Hepburn and Gregory Peck shared a brief sunlit romance in Roman Holiday, a film Ephron adored for its bittersweet honesty. Hepburn's princess ditches her royal duties for a taste of real life, and Peck's reporter shows her the eternal city with charm and respect. Their love is fleeting but unforgettable. Ephron was enchanted by its balance, magical yet grounded, romantic yet realistic. No one ends up together, but no one's broken either. It's about the perfect moment, not the perfect ending. She once said, Roman holiday taught her that romance doesn't always need resolution. Sometimes it's enough to fall in love just once, just right, and then move on, forever changed. And who could resist that iconic Vespa ride or that heartbreaking final wave? 6. His Girl Friday. Nora Ephron couldn't resist fast-talking love, and His Girl Friday was a verbal hurricane. Cary Grant and Rosalind Russell aren't just ex-spouses, they're former flames whose fire never really went out. The film zips along like a newsroom on deadline, but beneath the screwball comedy, there's a romance rooted in intellectual chemistry. Ephron admired the way their love played out in arguments, glances, and shared ambition. She often said that love between equals is the hardest and most satisfying to portray. In His Girl Friday, romance isn't candlelit dinners. It's shared language, shared drive, and that unmistakable spark between people who challenge each other. Ephron knew that love wasn't always soft. It could be sarcastic, competitive, even exasperating. But it was always electric. 7. It happened one night. Before there was Nora Ephron, there was Frank Capra, and It Happened One Night was the blueprint for every romantic comedy to come. Ephron revered it. A runaway heiress and a down-on-his-luck reporter share a bus ride, a blanket barrier in a motel room, and eventually their hearts. It's the original Opposites Attract story. Ephron loved how it built love from friction. Claudette Colbert and Clark Gable didn't fall head over heels immediately. They earned it. The banter, the push and pull, the gradual softening of walls, that was romance to her. She often said real love doesn't come easy, and this film proved it. With its witty dialogue and perfectly timed glances, It Happened One Night showed that love was a journey, one bus ride, one blanket wall, and one stolen moment at a time. 8. The Shop Around the Corner. Before You've Got Mail, there was The Shop Around the Corner, the very inspiration for Ephron's own modern love letter. Set in a charming Budapest store, the film follows two co-workers who bicker by day but unknowingly fall in love as anonymous pen pals. James Stewart and Margaret Sullivan are pure magic, funny, vulnerable, and completely human. Ephron adored the film's structure. Love revealed not through appearances, but through words. She believed that the way we write, how we express our thoughts when no one's watching, is where love truly lives. What struck her most was its gentleness. No grand gestures, just kindness, misunderstanding, and the slow unwrapping of two lonely hearts. It was witty, warm, and deceptively simple. Ephron called it a miracle of tone, and for her it was proof that love could bloom even in a paper-thin letter. 9th Sabrina. Nora Ephron was captivated by transformation stories, and Sabrina delivered that in a romantic fairy tale frame. Audrey Hepburn plays the chauffeur's daughter who returns from Paris full of poise and mystery, catching the eye of both rich brothers, one wild, one reserved. Ephron loved the quiet yearning of Bogart's character, who falls not for Sabrina's new look, but her soul. The movie dazzles with gowns, glitter, and Parisian flair, but at its heart, it's about finding the love you didn't expect. Ephron often explored women discovering their voices and identities, and Sabrina's journey echoed that perfectly. It wasn't about being chosen, it was about becoming someone worth choosing. The film was dreamy, yet grounded, and Ephron saw in it the eternal truth. Love isn't just who you're with, it's who you become when you're with them. 10th Splendor in the Grass. Splendor in the Grass hit a raw nerve for Ephron. This wasn't romantic comedy, it was romantic tragedy. Starring Natalie Wood and Warren Beatty, the story captures young love torn apart by societal pressures, mental breakdowns, and the cruel passage of time. Ephron admired the film's bravery, its refusal to tidy up heartbreak. Wood's performance, vulnerable and haunting, left a deep impression on her. The film didn't just depict love lost, it mourned it, the kind of loss that never leaves you. Ephron once said that our first heartbreak shapes everything that comes after. Splendor in the Grass was that heartbreak personified. It dared to ask, what if love isn't enough? And what if we still carry its ghost forever? For Ephron, that kind of emotional honesty was rare and unforgettable. 11th Funny Girl. Barbra Streisand's Fanny Brice didn't just love, she performed love. And Ephron was riveted. Funny Girl was a musical, yes, but underneath the razzle-dazzle was a devastating romance between Fanny and gambler Nicky Arnstein. Streisand gave Ephron the kind of heroine she adored, bold, vulnerable, brilliant, and messy. Fanny didn't shrink to be loved. She grew bigger. Ephron loved that contradiction, that love can lift you up, but also let you down. The final scene, where Fanny sings "My Man" through tears but stands tall, felt personal to Ephron. Heartbreak didn't destroy her, it defined her strength. She saw in Funny Girl the kind of complicated romance she herself loved to write, beautiful, broken, and impossibly real. 12th Love Affair. Before An Affair to Remember, there was Love Affair, the original tearjerker. Charles Boyer and Irene Dunne played the lovers, and Ephron found their chemistry undeniable. The plot was nearly identical to its later remake. A couple agrees to reunite atop the Empire State Building, only to be separated by fate. What Ephron adored was the earnestness of the original, the way it didn't flinch from emotion. The film believed in love so strongly it didn't mind if you cried. And she did. Ephron considered it the movie that taught her how to feel on screen. Its elegance, its grace, and its refusal to mock emotion left a permanent stamp on her storytelling. To Ephron, Love Affair was more than a movie. It was an invitation to believe in destiny. 13. Now Voyager. Ephron once called Now Voyager the story of a woman falling in love with herself, and that's why she adored it. Bette Davis plays Charlotte Vale, a repressed woman who undergoes a transformation, not for a man, but for her own survival. And yet, it's through a forbidden romance with Paul Henreid that Charlotte discovers strength, dignity, and purpose. Ephron saw this as a deeply feminist love story disguised as a melodrama. That final line, "Don't let's ask for the moon, we have the stars," was, to her, the ultimate expression of bittersweet romance. The characters didn't end up together, but they found something bigger: peace. Ephron loved that kind of romance, the one where the heart swells, not breaks, where the love may not last, but the lesson does. 14. The Apartment. Billy Wilder's The Apartment was sardonic, sad, and surprisingly romantic, and Ephron saw its brilliance. Jack Lemmon's Everyman and Shirley MacLaine's heartbreak felt achingly real. This wasn't a glamorous love, it was ordinary people in messy situations trying to do the right thing. Ephron admired how it balanced cynicism with hope. At its core, the film asked, can love survive disappointment? Can people change for each other, not through grand gestures, but quiet, difficult choices? She especially loved the line, "Shut up and deal," a perfect anti-fairy tale ending. In a world full of artificial romance, The Apartment gave her the courage to write about the beauty of flawed, human love. Because sometimes the greatest romances are the most broken ones. 15th. Notorious. Yes, even Alfred Hitchcock could do romance, and Ephron never forgot it. Notorious paired Cary Grant and Ingrid Bergman in a spy thriller drenched in sexual tension and trust issues. Ephron loved the film's slow-burn intimacy, especially the way Hitchcock prolonged a single kiss into something hypnotic. But what stayed with her most was the emotional cost of love. Grant's character sends Bergman into danger, torn between duty and desire. Ephron found that conflict intoxicating. This was love with stakes, real, dangerous, and morally complex. It wasn't about candlelit dinners. It was about risking your soul for someone and hoping they'd pull you back. Ephron admired the film's elegant restraint, proving suspense and seduction could be two sides of the same coin. 16. The Way We Were. If Heartbreak had a theme song, it would be The Way We Were. And if it had a screenwriter's endorsement, it would be Nora Ephron's. She saw herself in Katie Morosky, the idealistic, intense woman who loved too fiercely and too purely. Barbra Streisand and Robert Redford embodied opposites that both attracted and repelled. Ephron found its emotional messiness refreshing. Not every love story has a neat bow. Sometimes the timing's wrong. Sometimes people aren't meant to last, but they'll haunt you forever. She believed this movie said everything about why we remember the ones who got away, and how that memory can be as powerful as the love itself. For Ephron, this was not a romance. It was a scar we keep touching. 17. The Awful Truth. In The Awful Truth, Irene Dunne and Cary Grant play a divorcing couple who can't seem to let go because, well, they're still in love. Ephron loved how hilariously honest it was about relationships. The miscommunication, the pride, the sabotage. It all rang true. This wasn't a love that needed to be found. It needed to be recognized. Ephron adored romantic comedies where people rediscovered love after nearly losing it. She once said, "Sometimes you don't know what you've got until you're almost divorced." The film's charm lay in its light touch, but its message was deeply Ephronian. Real love is messy, funny, and sometimes hard-headed. But when it's real, it always finds its way back. On Sekizinchi Mart. Marty wasn't glamorous, and that's exactly why Ephron loved it. Ernest Borgnine played a lonely Bronx butcher who finds unexpected love with a shy schoolteacher. There are no sweeping gestures here, no grand passions, just two ordinary people who dare to believe they're worthy of something more. Ephron called it one of the most honest love stories ever told. She treasured its simplicity and heart. It reminded her that romance doesn't need to sparkle. It just needs to matter. The line, "What do you want to do tonight, Marty?" became, to Ephron, a symbol of how love often begins, awkwardly, humbly, and hopefully. Marty showed her that love stories aren't reserved for the beautiful and the bold. They're for everyone. 19th, To Have and Have Not. Bogart and Bacall's first pairing on screen was more than a movie. It was a lightning strike. Ephron was enthralled. The sexual chemistry, the flirtatious wit, that iconic line, "You know how to whistle, don't you?" It all left a mark on her romantic imagination. What she admired most was the equality in their attraction. Bacall wasn't just a pretty face. She matched Bogart's grit beat for beat. Ephron believed great love stories require mutual admiration. To Have and Have Not delivered that with a spark and swagger few films ever matched. She loved that their romance was born in danger but survived on cleverness and confidence. It wasn't a fairy tale. It was grown-up, thrilling, and undeniably alive. 20. The Clock. This wartime romance starring Judy Garland and Robert Walker was one of Ephron's quieter favorites. A chance meeting at New York's Penn Station turns into a whirlwind 48-hour love story before a soldier ships out to war. Ephron cherished how the film captured fleeting love, romance on a deadline. She said it proved how time doesn't measure love's depth. The urgency, the sincerity, and the tenderness all spoke to her belief in emotional truth. Garland, known for musicals, played it straight, and Ephron admired her vulnerability. The film reminded viewers, as Ephron's own scripts often did, that the shortest stories can leave the longest echoes. 21st, Summertime. Katharine Hepburn's portrayal of a lonely American in Venice finding unexpected love with an Italian stranger moved Ephron deeply. Summertime was about risk, emotional, cultural, and personal. Ephron appreciated that the film didn't guarantee a happily ever after. It simply honored the beauty of now. She loved the way Venice felt like another character, seductive, dreamlike, and full of mystery. Hepburn's heartbreak wasn't tragic. It was liberating. Ephron often said that some loves aren't meant to last, but they awaken parts of us that were sleeping. Summertime was that awakening on film. 22, That Hamilton Woman. A romance for the ages, literally. Vivien Leigh and Laurence Olivier portrayed the doomed love between Lady Emma Hamilton and Admiral Horatio Nelson. Ephron was drawn to the film's grandeur and sorrow. Set against the backdrop of war and politics, their love burned fiercely, but ended in sacrifice. Ephron appreciated its sweep and its sting. This was love that cost everything, and still felt worth it. She believed in the idea that some love stories aren't meant to survive, but to be remembered. That Hamilton Woman captured the nobility of doomed passion, a theme that echoed through Ephron's own tales of bittersweet longing. For Nora Ephron, classic romance wasn't about perfection. It was about connection, vulnerability, and longing. These 22 films shaped her storytelling, her belief in love, and her audience's hearts. If these romances still speak to you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Because good love stories never go out of style.